Good morning, everyone. Guten Tag. Ich spreche keine Deutsch. Ein Bier bitte. Dankeschön. Ja, it's 2 Bier bitte. How amazing to see you all. Can I just ask, who's been to a Selenium conference before? It's about a third of the room. Welcome back. For those of you who haven't been to one of these before, welcome. It is fantastic to see you. Now, the timer isn't going down, so that's good. I have unlimited time. I'm sorry to all of you. When I was preparing this deck, I thought I'd start the deck with something truly, authentically German. And I was trying to think, without being stereotypical, right? So, we're in Berlin, so I could have begun with, Ich bin ein Berliner. I am a jam-filled donut. That is not true. I am not a jam-filled donut. Or maybe a picture of a bear, like the symbol of Berlin. Or maybe like a lovely photo of Mutti, Angela Merkel. The one person holding the whole of the world together, it seems, now that Obama is gone. Did I do that? No. No, I didn't. I chose something even more resolutely German and representative of this country. David Hasselhoff. Who doesn't love David Hasselhoff? It's either this or like Party for One, right? That would be the other thing to do. So, somewhat strangely for a talk about browser automation, I'd like to talk about David Hasselhoff. I think we can admit he is dreamy. This is young David Hasselhoff. Young David Hasselhoff had no idea what he was going to become, like none of us do when we're young. Well, I always wanted to be a nerd, and that kind of happened. Young David Hasselhoff, he was exploring. He was in so many different things. He was all over the place. He had amazing hair. Hair that I think we could all agree we could die for. And he rose to fame and prominence. He did a whole bunch of stuff. He was an actor, he was a singer, he was great. And then he found Knight Rider, and he had Kit, the talking car. He saw the Google automated cars years before it actually happened. The guy was amazing. Let's admit it. Who wouldn't want to be young David Hasselhoff? Tell you who wouldn't want to be young David Hasselhoff. Mid-career David Hasselhoff. Does anyone know where this picture is from? So David Hasselhoff is one of the only individuals, I think he is the only individual, who has sung on the Berlin Wall. There was the Berlin Wall came down, unification was going to happen. He happened to be in town. He did a concert from a crane singing a song about freedom. Who knows? Not actually freedom, not like freedom, not that one. But something different. And this is what he was wearing on the night. We could all say, not only does he have fantastic hair, he's a snappy dresser too. Look at me, I've got jeans and a t-shirt and I'm feeling overdressed. So yes, David Hasselhoff, mid-career, amazing. He's got Baywatch. He is everywhere, right? You think of David Hasselhoff, you know what you're getting. You are getting the Hoff. Possibly in a pair of red swimming trunks. And that leads us to current David. Who here has seen the second Guardians of the Galaxy film? Like I have. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, go and see the first one instead. But it features a cameo with David Hasselhoff, and David Hasselhoff is now a sort of caricature of himself. Right? You have the guy who appears, and he's smooth and he's charming, and we ignore the bit where he's drunk and eating burgers and talking to his daughter. He's lovely. But now you have David Hasselhoff as a sort of person who knows exactly what it is, and he's just sort of taking advantage of that, and he's playing to type right now. So I think it would be a perfectly sensible question to ask. why am I talking about David Hasselhoff? I mean, it's not some sort of weird nerd appreciation thing. It is some word appreciation thing. Who here has heard of Kent Beck? Okay, most of you have. Kent Beck is the primary author of extreme programming. He came up with it. He literally wrote the book on it. Extreme programming is one of the really successful, agile software methodologies. This guy knows software, and he knows how to think about software. And he's recently come up with a slightly unfortunately named framework called XXX. I mean, yeah, sorry, Patty is saying unfortunate and like it's a question. In the age of prurience we live in, yes. However, it's not really unfortunate. And 3X stands for, because software engineers don't know how to spell, 3X stands for explore, expand, and extract. And these are the three life cycles of a project. These are the three parts of the life cycle of a project. First bit, you literally have no idea what you're doing. Does anyone actually know what they're doing? Because I'd love to talk to you later, because I don't know what I'm doing. You literally have no idea what you're doing. So you do a lot of cheap, fast iterations and explorations. You spike out ideas that may or may not work. Who knows? Who knows? And then you find something that kind of works, right? And you go, this kind of works. And so you build upon it, right? You stop iterating over possible ideas, and you start building it out, and you start adding features, and you start doing things that make people want to use your product. So you go from, in the language of the startup, you go from minimal viable product to presumably viable product. And that's great. And then, having done all that, you then go like, I can now have the money come in. And any changes you make are incremental changes, like the law of diminishing returns kicks in. And you end up just making minor tweaks, minor changes. You don't want to really change it that much. And you extract profit and benefit from that software at that point. Now, it doesn't need to be like financial benefit. It could be, oh, look, my system is now stable, and I don't need to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning every morning. Could be that. So XXX is a sort of idea of thinking about software lifecycle. And the nice thing is, even in the biggest project, like the bigger you are, this thing is fractal. So you think you're doing one thing at your company. Your company may be, I don't know, Salesforce or Hewlett-Packard or someone like that, Microsoft, right? You think of them and you think they're probably in the extract phase. But then people are doing exploration at the same time. They're going like, I don't know how to solve this particular piece of software. I don't know whether this product is a good idea. I don't know about this. So it's fractal in nature. Even the thing that appears to be at extract can also be exploring at the same time. It's like the Mandelbrot set of horror. And that's one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about today, because I think when you think about Selenium, you think this is a stable, mature product. I mean, before going too much further, I need a low-res image of the Selenium logo. Looks a lot better here. Oh, well, never mind. The new branding, this came from the website, obviously. I should probably talk to you about what on earth Selenium is. Selenium is John Malkovich. And I say that, has everyone seen the film, right? You know, being John Malkovich, where it's like Malkovich, 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 Malkovich. So I'm going to continue in that frame. Malkovich, 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 Malkovich. It's not funny, is it?
Oh, it's hysterical.
Yeah, I'm literally clutching my sides in horror. On the Selenium project, everything is called either Selenium or WebDriver. Selenium IDE, Selenium. The protocol, Selenium. I mean, for a while, the import to get Selenium working in Python was from selenium.selenium, import Selenium. What were we thinking? Clearly, we have a problem naming things, right? The protocol, who knows what the name of the protocol is? Everything is called Selenium. So I'd like to break the project down into like its moving pieces, and we can talk about that. In terms of expand, extract, and explore. The 3X framework. So the spec. The W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, if you've seen one of these before, you know exactly where I'm going. The World Wide Web Consortium is responsible for mandating and curating standards that we use every day in our browsers. If you've used HTML, if you've cursed at the complexity of CSS, if you thought that maybe XHTML is the future, then you've dealt with things. That's an in-joke for the Selenium Project, by the way. Then you've dealt with specs that the W3C handle. Now, normally these specs are to do with rendering things in the browser, right? The World Wide Web Consortium. The WebDriver spec is going through that. It's part of the Browser Tools and Testing Working Group. The W3C operates as a series of working groups. And I really, 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 really wanted to stand up here today and go, after 5 years, the WebDriver specification is a standard. It's a recommendation, a rec. I can't say that. I can't say that. Like, I'd really want to say that. But I can't say that. I mean, you can clap just because it's crazy. But I am told by the people in the W3C that it is imminent. In the history of the project, I believe that we always say things that are imminent are due by Christmas. It should be here by Christmas. It's held up at a stage called proposed recommendation, PR. And a proposed recommendation is where we stop making edits to it. We think it's stable. We have multiple different implementations of it. And then the W3C vote on it, and it becomes either a thing that everyone implements or it becomes like this cast off to history. Kind of hoping the first thing happens. We have 2 separate implementations of the standard which are required. The first one is Mozilla's Gecko driver. That is the reason why you may have been struggling with Firefox for a while, because they were tracking the spec, and it took us longer than we thought to write the spec. And the second one is Jim Evans' fine, excellent work on the Internet Explorer driver. So we have 2 compatible implementations that pass the extensive test suite of about 8 tests. So the spec is in the sort of extract phase of its life cycle. But of course, the spec isn't the only thing that's Selenium. It's not the only thing that's WebDriver. There is the steering committee. So I don't know whether you know, you may not, because we don't really make a big song and dance about it, except at the conference. The Software Freedom Conservancy is the biggest group you've never heard of. If you've used Git, if you've used Boost, if you've used Selenium, you're using projects that they are caretakers for and they are protecting of. And what they do is they handle the financial matters of the project, the legal matters of the project. When we ask you to sign a CLA, if you didn't sign that and we took you to change and there was some pushback, they would be the guys that go to bat for us. In order to get this conference to happen, people needed to sign checks. These marvelous rooms, these fantastic stenographers. It's fantastic stenography. They're not free, right? Everything needs to be paid for, and your tickets help pay for that. However, we need to pay money up front. And the Software Freedom Conservancy are the group that manage the finances for the project. But they need to know who it is that they should be talking to, who they should be asking questions, who approves various bits and pieces. And so between the open source project, like guys and gals and people hacking on code, writing documentation, doing all that good stuff, and the SFC, there's a sort of group that acts as a sort of interface. And they're the ones that sort of vote on things. And the way we run it is we always go to the mailing lists, the IRC channel, whenever there's a decision to be made. So we run the project as transparently as possible, but there are a group of individuals who are acting as an interface with the Software Freedom Conservancy. That's the steering committee. It's not all of the steering committee, but I'm on it. When we originally went to the SFC, Paul Hammond, Patrick Lightbody, Dan Fabulich, the original Jason Huggins, myself, the main contributors and people who'd been involved with the project for a long time were there. And over time, those people have moved on and gone on to exciting things that are happening. Jason Huggins. If I say it 3 times, does he appear like the Candyman? Oh, look, it's Jason, J-S-O-N. that is actually hilarious and appropriate. So yes, the steering committee, everyone else has moved on, but there's me. And as people leave, we recruit new people. And one of those people is Dave Hefner. Now, Dave Hefner doesn't write a lot of code, but he is really good at answering emails and being organized. I am not really good at answering I can't even speak. Just terrible, right? Dave, if you ever want to sponsor the project, he's probably the person that answers that email and goes like, yeah, of course you can sponsor the project. It's amazing. He has just been managerially fantastic as a sort of interface between the bits and pieces. He also owns the internet, which is a testing resource displaying like a bunch of things where people go like crazy on the internet and do all sorts of strange things, and then you can point your WebDriver instances, your Selenium instances at it and go like, what? So that's Dave. And also Jim Evans. So for a while, there were three of us. Jim Evans is sitting down here in the front row, has been with the project forever, is the owner of the .NET bindings. So if you use .NET or C#, you're using Jim's work. If you use Internet Explorer, you're using Jim's work. He's one of the guys that I talk to all the time. He has a lot of opinions about how things should be done and how they shouldn't be done, and that's what we do. But it turns out there's like this theme. White dude, white dude, white dude, committer, committer, committer. Like, we've all just been involved with the project for a long time. Most of us are developers. You know, it doesn't really represent the community that we have. Because not everyone on Selenium writes code, and not everyone does training, right? And we wanted to have a steering committee that represented the project rather than the people who commit code on the project. And so I'm really happy to say that we recently added some more people, and Ashley, who you saw on stage just a few minutes ago, is one of those people. She's been heavily involved with the community. She's, helped organize this conference. She helps just make us a project that has people in it, right? And she's going to be talking later, and she's going to be doing one of those talks, which I think is really nice that we do at these conferences, which is not just about the technical things, but about being a software engineer and learning how to code and sitting here and having an experience of being an engineer. Is that a reasonable way of? Sure. I mean, it's not just technical, right? This project has things that aren't technical, and Ashley has helped that happen. Manoj, who you saw in the opening slides as well, if you go to the IRC channel and ask for help, Manoj is always there. If you go to the mailing lists, Manoj is always there. If you just ask for help on Twitter, he's there. This guy is amazing. He's like a one-man support factory for the project. You laugh, right? But every project needs these things, right? He's got so much experience and so much knowledge, and he's so happy to share it with everyone. And so he's part of the steering committee. And there's Alexei, who is like my right-hand man writing the Java code. The Java code is basically everything in the project. It's the server, it's the Java bindings. He will go through and quite happily delete everything, going like, everyone should upgrade. He's right. You should all upgrade. But maybe I'm not quite so gung-ho. But like I'll show some stats later, he has contributed more to the project in terms of code than almost anyone else over the past few years. He's a coding machine. And without him, we wouldn't be moving at the speed we're going at. So this is a steering committee. These are the people who are leaders within the project because of the things they've done. And because of the things they've done, we've said to them, would you like to have an hour-long phone call every month? And would you like to have also some legal, political, financial stuff heaped on your shoulders? And everyone has said yes, which I think is phenomenal. So that's the steering committee. Selenium IDE. So the universe is a big place. If you think the walk to the shops is big, it's nothing compared to space. It's peanuts. Space is big, and it's held together by gravity, but there isn't enough matter in the universe to describe everything that happens. And so they've postulated the idea of dark matter, like matter we can't detect or see. The internet has dark matter as well. It's PHP. Nobody will admit to using PHP. You go, do you use PHP? And people like recoil in horror, like you said something horrible to them. PHP is the dark matter of the internet. Selenium IDE, I believe, is the dark matter of the project. What was that, Jim? Dark energy of the project. Thank you very much. Dark energy, dark matter. I mean, you know, E equals mc squared. So, I mean, energy is matter, matter is energy. Clearly, I wish that was true. Everyone uses IDE, right? Who here actually uses Selenium IDE or has used it? That's more people than normal who admit to using it. That's about a quarter of the audience raise their hands. It's like an on-ramp to the project. It's like people get thrown into the deep end. They get told, you have to automate these tests. They don't know how to automate things. So they hunt around and they find IDE and they click, 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 and they get onto it. And that's how they get introduced to Selenium. And for a lot of people, that's where they stop. And that's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it's fine. Now, IDE was a plugin for Firefox, an XPI, a Zippy, and it was great. The only downside is Mozilla moved forward. Like Quantum, the next release of Firefox, is going to be amazing. It's like multi-process. It's got the servo engine in it. It's fast. It's scalable. It runs on modern hardware. It breaks IDE. Because of the changes they've made in order to have a better browser and a better browsing experience, the XPI-based plugins no longer work. IDE is one of those XPI-based plugins. That wasn't good. That was like a dark moment for the project. Samit, who had been the maintainer of IDE, was utterly slammed at work. He had no capacity, no time, no energy. And suddenly, this sort of key part of the project that no one will admit to using, except for some of you brave folks, was broken. What were we going to do? Now, we're lucky in the Appler tools were around, and we've been talking to them, and they went, well, we're really interested in making IDE really good because it's useful for them, and it's useful for the community to have this tool. And they saw like both sides of the equation. And they stepped up, and they donated and lent 2 excellent engineers to that project, Doron and Tomer, who have been working flat out to try and get IDE back up and running. And what they've done is they've taken a project called SideX, I don't know how to pronounce it, and which was a sort of decompiled version of the IDE with extra enhancements made. But it's now a web component, and that means that it can, in theory, run on Chrome, it can run on Firefox, it could possibly run on Edge. When Apple get around to it, it'll run on Safari. Like, web components are the way forward, and IDE is happening. So, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, we have a new IDE, and we'll get that in your hands as soon as humanly possible. So IDE, we don't really know what we're doing. We're having an explore phase, right? We're trying a million things. If you ever wanted to get involved with the project, and you know JavaScript, this is a fantastic thing to do. Grid, on the other hand, is mature and stable and well-known. Selenium Grid is the component where what you can do is scale out your tests horizontally. So you can run 100 tests simultaneously on your local machine, and you can have 100 browsers. But those 100 browsers don't need to be on your machine. They can be on this sort of fleet of capacity you have available to you. So Grid is there. It's stable. It's well-known. Grid is in the extract phase of its life cycle. Like, we're trying to derive benefit from it, and it should be relatively stable. So, I mean, that's the project, right? This is Sagittarius. Does anyone believe in astrology? Absolutely no one admits it. I love the rationality of this audience. This is Sagittarius. I'm an Aquarius. I mean, that explains why I don't believe in astrology. We're exploring, we're expanding, we're extracting. There are things that we're doing on the project at all phases of the 3x life cycle. Why have I told you all this? Because, I mean, you can just go check this stuff out, right? You all know this stuff already. It's Because the thing that keeps me up at night and the thing that makes me worry a lot is, like, where do we go next? And how do we get there? Bill Bryson, in his book, Notes from a Small Island, begins with English people giving each other directions to a place. He goes like, how do I get from here to here? And the first guy goes, you just drive down this road. Second guy goes, no, on a Tuesday, you can't go down here. It's better to go this alternate route. And then by the end of it, they sort of all agree that while there is an incredibly complicated way of getting there, if you wanted to get there, you wouldn't start from here. Where next? How do we get there? Well, whenever you're going to take any journey, you always take a look at where you are first, and you try and figure it out. Like, my phone has a broken GPS, and so it likes to start me off when I navigate to places in random places that may be 5 to 6 kilometers away from where I am. That's no use. You want to know where you are. So, what's great about the Selenium project? I think there's a lot that's great about the Selenium project. Mandatory kitten slide. It is warm, it's supportive, it's fun, right? I mean, for the people who have been working on this, it's wildly entertaining. I mean, we have the conference. Conference is great. We get to meet you people, and you don't shout at us, and that's amazing. Because, you know, on the mailing list in IRC, people like shout all the time, right? They go like, it's the SLA for this fix. It's like, dude, I'm in my pajamas. So conference is always good, right? And I love the fact that we have talks that aren't purely technical. I love the fact that there are talks that make you think about being a better human, being a better software engineer, just things that aren't necessarily about technology, but around the things you need in order to be a better technologist. I love the fact that we have these traditions on the project. With the W3C working groups, we were in Lisbon, we had a face-to-face meeting, went to a restaurant, had a meal, thought it would be nice to have like a drink to round out the meal. We asked for a gin and tonic. Now in Britain, a gin and tonic is like just a single shot, right? It's a pleasant drink. In Lisbon, it came in a goblet. And so now the W3C working group offer each other goblets of gin. Whenever we reach a milestone, people go like, I'll have a goblet of gin, please. And that's funny. On the software project, years and years ago, Jari Bakken, who was just a phenomenal individual, just an amazing coder, classical musician, he used to practice writing code the same way that other people practice a musical instrument. Like every day, he'd do his scales, he'd do set exercises, he'd do all sorts of things, and he was phenomenal. He did something amazing, like he always did, and somebody on the mailing list, on the IRC channel, went, next time I see you, I'm going to buy you a steak as big as your head. It's a big steak, right? And it kind of stuck. So whenever anyone did something awesome or amazing, like humorously, we'd go, you can have a steak as big as your head. You can have a steak as big. You can all have steaks as big as your head. And it was a joke. It wasn't something we took seriously. And then we arrived in San Francisco for the first ever Selenium Conf. I remember Jason Huggins and I walked into the room on the first day, the workshops, and we thought there'd be like 20 people there, and there were 300 people sitting in a room. And we turned to each other and went, I'm not allowed to swear. They went, gosh. So we had that first Selenium conference. We finally had all the committers in the same place at the same time. And so we literally ran away from the conference. Like there were people talking to us, and we were in San Francisco, so we just powered up a hill. And we ended up like just the committers, and then we went and got steak. And I bought everyone on the project a steak as big as their head. And ever since then, whenever the committees get together, we have steak. And that's a nice thing to do. It's like this tradition. It's warm, it's supportive, it's nice. Come onto the IRC channel, we've helped people learn to code. People have shown up on that channel going, my boss has told me I need to do this, I don't really know what to do, I'm panicking. And people have gone, all right, well, what programming language do you want to use? What do people do? And we've taken people who really have no idea what they've been asked to do. They have no idea how to do it. We've helped them, and we've trained them. And then those people have turned back, and they've offered that same level of support to other people in the community. It's a lovely thing to see. Like, I really do believe that Selenium is one of the most encouraging, supportive communities you could be part of. And I'd like to keep that, right? I'd love that to be like the hallmark of it. I'd like people to come along and go, Selenium's a cool place to hang out. I mean, it's a nerdy thing to do. Like, trust me, like nobody goes like, kids don't, my 5-year-old doesn't go like, Dad, I want to work on Selenium. No, he never says that. He tells me to put my laptop away and play. And he's right. So, I mean, that's where we are now. We've got this friendly, supportive project, which is lovely, and I'd like to keep that. So how do we make it better? I think the first thing we need to do is friendlier documentation. Our documentation looks like it came out of the early 2000s, and there's a reason for that. It came out of the early 2000s. It's grown organically. Things have happened. We've done a lot of stuff with it. But that documentation is old and tired. And Andreas Tolfsen, who works at Mozilla, worked at Opera Software at the time, marvelous person, great committer, loves Opera. Like, I like the fact that like not only are people amazing, but they do things that are amazing outside of the technical realm. He went like, well, this isn't good enough, and helped kickstart a documentation project, Selenium HQ docs on GitHub. It's in, I think it's Markdown. It's pretty easy to edit. Like, it's a well-known format that you can go in. It's a super lightweight way of contributing, and this documentation is great. It's narrative-based. It's like, so you start and you want to download. Here's the first problem we run into. OK, well, let's solve that. Here's this, here's this, here's this. And it's readable, and it's friendly, and it's approachable, and we can't make it our official documentation because there are gaps. If you love the Selenium project, if you use the Selenium project, if you'd like to contribute to the Selenium project, and you don't know how to do code, that's fine. Come and help us write friendly docs. Help us write the documentation that you yourself would want to read when you were starting with that project. You all have this wealth of experience, right? Who here has not used Selenium yet for their job? Fortunately, no one raised their hand. I think last time I asked that, somebody raised their hand. It's like, what are you doing here? Oh, you're learning. OK, that's great. Come join us. Friendly documentation. We need it. And we really do need a hand to make this amazing. This is a Heath Robinson thing. This is how to peel onions so you don't cry. That's a bit like the Selenium APIs. Like, you can do everything you need to do, but it's sometimes a little bit convoluted. Wartier project, which is the Ruby bindings, commonly found in. What they've done is they've focused on writing an API that is usable by non-developers to automate tests. It's a friendly, approachable API. The WebDriver APIs, I wrote them as building blocks, right? You were always meant to layer on more sophisticated things that were going to be appropriate for your domain. And then I wrote the support package as like a demonstration of some of the things you could do. And now everyone uses a support package, complete with like terrible ideas. I wrote while tipsy one night. The page object factory. The page factory, I wrote while tipsy, and it was like, here's an idea. Terrible, absolutely horrible code. You should not be using it. You should take the idea and do something like it, but you should not be using it. But the thing is, we're approaching the end of the technical problems. With the WebDriver specification, the browser manufacturers, the browser vendors, are now responsible for writing their own implementations. And that frees us up to think about how people use this and how people want to use it. And the Wartier project is a guiding light for this, right? They've done a bunch of stuff where it's like easy to use, it's friendly, it's pleasant. Wouldn't it be nice if, Selenium was friendly and pleasant? Have any of you cursed at Selenium while writing code? I mean, I do it all the time. I'm literally a one-man profanosaurus. And part of that is there's gaps. Stale element exception. We throw it all the time, and we've never put in anything to make it easy to recover from that, because you ought to know what the hell you're doing. And technically that's correct, which is the best kind of correct, technically. But it would be nice if we had self-locating elements that if it found one stale element, it might go back and try it one more time and go like, all right, buddy, I'll give it a go. And it may or may not work. Who knows? Like, that would be nice, right? Or, I don't know. What do you guys struggle with? What do you find hard? How would we make it better? Feedback, contributions. Come and send a pull request. We eventually get around to reviewing them. There's not many of us. Which boils down to, this is Alice in Wonderland playing croquet, which is a game that nobody understands. And she's using a flamingo to hit a hedgehog. I think we can all agree you shouldn't use flamingos to hit hedgehogs. Unless you're writing surrealist nonsense like Lewis Carroll, in which case it's fine. She's using an inappropriate tool for a job that shouldn't be done. Someone's collapsing in the front row. Selenium gets used in all these weird places, right? And it's hard to get started. Like, you download Selenium, people go, I'd like to make Firefox work, and you go like, nah. You also need to download WebDriver. Which version of WebDriver? Well, that depends. I need to use Internet Explorer. Are you on 32 or 64-bit Windows? 64. Well, you need the 32-bit version. Like, what? I literally have no idea what to do. It's an absolute devil to get started with Selenium. And it's hard to do the updates. Like, yeah, we try and hold things stable. Who here is still using Selenium 2? Because, yeah, and lots of the reasons are, I find it hard to go from Selenium 2 to Selenium 3 because the way that Firefox works has changed, probably. No, there's a shrug. Yeah. It's very Gallic. I do not know. There is a problem with my tests. I can never upgrade. Yeah, so it needs to be easier to use. Like, ultimately, better documentation, better APIs. It's all about making it more friendly, more approachable, more like the sort of warm, inviting space we'd like it to be. So yeah, Selenium, that's where I'd like us to get to. I'd like us to be easier to use, and I don't really mind how we get there. But one of the key things we need are new leaders on the project. Allow me to show you some statistics. This is from GitHub. It's the number of commits that have been there. It starts in 2004. 13 years old, Selenium is. Like, at some point, it's going to start getting stroppy and slamming the door and telling us it hates us. And you can see some interesting stuff. Like, up to 2010, it was going along, and then 2010, WebDriver took off. Like, I started WebDriver in 2007, and you can see, and there's a spike of activity. That's where Selenium 2 was coming out, and where we went, oh, heavens above, and Selenium 2 took over the world. And then it goes quiet for a bit, and it goes quiet for a bit. I hate to blow my own trumpet, because I definitely do not have a massive ego. It went quiet because I went and joined Facebook, and I wasn't contributing code to the Selenium project. And then, in 2016, I leave Facebook, and there's an uptick. And the reason why there's an uptick? Writing code again. Over the lifetime of the project, the people with more than 1,000 commits, 7. 7 people have done more than 1,000 commits. Alexei is one of them. He's a coding machine. Jim is another. Jason Laber, who looks after the JavaScript bindings, Yari Bakken, Dan Fabulich, Daniel Wagner-Hall, and myself. I can name the people who have done more than 1,000 commits on the project. Of those 7, how many are still actively involved with the project? 4. And that's if you include Jason Laber, right? And he's got a day job, and he doesn't have a huge amount of time. 4 people. I have been working on Selenium for 11 years. Jim has been working on it for 7 years. I went back and looked in the logs. Jason Laber, 8 years, and Alexei, 6 years. In that time, I've been married twice, divorced, changed job 3 times, moved house more times than I care to mention. Selenium has been like the one constant stable thing. Like, my boy is younger than my project. Somebody went, your first child. Somebody said to me yesterday, goes, oh, your first child is Selenium. It's like, No, it's the boy. He's small and cuddly. He doesn't like being called small and cuddly these days. 2017, 3 people drove the project forward. 2016, a wider group, but you can see again, Luke and myself did like about half the commits, a third of the commits between us. 2015, when I was working at Facebook, I only had time for 65 commits, and Alexei did 295. This thing that we all rely on works because a handful of people are putting their life and soul into this project. And they don't need to. It's open source. People do open source because they love it. But they've loved it for a long time. They've put in a lot of effort. It takes energy. It would be really nice if there was a fresh group of people coming up through the ranks so we can avoid what's known as the bus factor. The bus factor is the number of people who need to be whisked off on a bus to a pleasant place where they never need to work again, or the hospital. Depending on the component, this is what Selenium runs on, this thing that we have an industry on, that many of you have based your jobs on. .NET, there's one person maintaining that, realistically. You look at the code. Java, I'm lucky, there's 2 of us. JavaScript, there's one, it's Jason Laber. He's got a day job. Like, the number of commits in the JavaScript bindings are few and far between. And you know what? JavaScript is damn hot. Like, everyone wants to write everything in JavaScript, inexplicably. But they do. Like, if you want to come in and join the project, that is a great place to be. Python, mainly David Burns. There's one other person who contributes as well. Ruby, we're lucky. Ruby has 3 people developing it. But nobody ever uses WebDriver directly in Ruby. They tend to go to Wartier or Capybara, right? It's like, I really worry about this stuff. And you should be worried too. And if you are worried, you should be coming and helping us. Now, that's my worried face. You don't need to see that, sorry. How do you get the commit bit? If you're worried, how do you get the commit bit? How do you become a developer? How do you push this project forward? First thing, file bugs. They say that doctors make the worst patients. They say that hairdressers have the worst haircuts. I say QA people file the worst bugs. It's like literally just appalling bugs come into the project. It's like, it doesn't work. Which is an actual bug. It's like, what doesn't work? How do I drive Excel? What? I've got a problem. Great. Do you know what it is? When I click this button, it doesn't work. Can I see the page? Absolutely not. So, file good bugs, and we can do good fixes. File terrible bugs, and we'll ignore you. I beg your pardon? Or come up on stage and make fun of you. File good bugs. Once you've filed a good bug, write some code. Sometimes the bugs are easy. Like, I've inverted a condition. I've done a terrible release. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Write some code. Contribute it. Pull requests. Now, we're a volunteer organization. There are 1 or 2 people, 3 people, 5 people who are basically carrying the weight of the project. We're not great at reviewing pull requests. Somebody pinged me on Twitter the other day, and I started reviewing their pull request, because it's like, oh, look, thank you very much for pointing that out. I didn't know. Pester us. Come onto the IRC channel, the Slack channel. Send us an email. Just go like, I've done this pull request. I really need you to take a look at it. We're not ignoring pull requests because we don't want them. We're ignoring it because we're totally slammed. And there's no time and no energy. But write some code, send a pull request. Once you've done that enough times, the process is, we take a vote. We go like, hey, do you want to become a committer? And you go like, absolutely. Or actually, the sensible answer is no. But absolutely. We take a vote, and then you get the commit bit. And that's great. But the thing is, you don't need to be a developer in order to contribute to the Selenium project. The steering committee shows that, right? And we're trying to lead by example. We're trying to take people who contribute to the project in ways that are not code and do awesome things. There are alternative routes. This is actually a road sign I saw where everything points to the right, except for other directions. It's like, of course, like it's written by a nerd, right? Written by a computer programmer. It's like, hey, there's a problem, we need to do this. Help us with documentation. Triage bugs. Come into the bug database, which is enormous, and ask for help. Like, go, that test case is not a test case. That's just you rambling about things. Come to the IRC channel. Do what Manoj did. Just help people. Share your experiences. Help on the user groups. There's Selenium Developer. There's the Selenium users list. There's actual physical user groups where people meet up in cities. Go and join those. Organize meetups. File really good bugs. That would be the thing. But most importantly, come and join us. We're a lovely, welcoming project filled with good people, and there's space for you to come in and take a leadership role if you want to do that. So I hope you all enjoy this conference. I hope you all learn a lot. And I'd just like to say thank you all very much for your time and for being here.